Hello, I'm Michelle.
And I'm Laura, and this is the Pair Entrepreneurs Club podcast, a weekly show to help you navigate the demands of being a working parent. We will share lots of practical ideas, hints and tips, and our own and others' experiences with juggling work, family, health and finances. Above all, we want to help you find your purpose, define your identity, and banish any confidence gremlins that might be holding you back from the life you dream of. No matter whether you have children or not, there will be something here for you. Let's get started. Hello, welcome to another episode of Pair Entrepreneurs Club podcast. I'm Laura, and with me today I have Kate Pattison. Kate is a mum of 2 children and founder of Learn Happy. Thank you so much, Kate, for joining me today. If you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself and a bit about what you do, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Kate and I am a mum of 2 children, a little girl who is 8 and a little boy who is 4. And I'm also the founder of Learn Happy, which is an education and wellbeing service-based business based in Hertfordshire. And we are focused on supporting children with their academic learning, but also their well-being, their emotional well-being, because in my view, you can't really have one without the other. And it's really important that children are supported in that way. And we do that through small group learning. So small groups of no larger than 6 children, sessions running weekly, termly. And the focus is on sort of collaborative learning, taking risks, feeling comfortable and secure in your learning, and just supporting children in that way.
Amazing. I think, that is so important, exactly you said there, to have that emotional resource as well for children. My little boy is 7, and I'm amazed by how much of the growth mindset, and those techniques that are now coming into schools. But it is hard when you've got huge classes and there's so much on the curriculum for them to learn.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
How do you... Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly why I started it. So my background, a little bit about my background, is that I have been teaching and tutoring and working as a senior leader in primary schools for 20 years. I've got quite a lot of experience with that. And my previous job was in London. And yes, I was always kind of, as I was teaching, I would always be, looking at the children in the class. And as you say, classes of 30, sometimes more than 30 as well. And I just always felt like there were children in the class, within the class, who, I don't know, you couldn't quite get to, or it's just impossible really to be able to give that number of children that real kind of individual support and attention, and just helping them to sort of, and I'll go on to talk about this a bit later, but helping them to sort of know themselves, and just really understand kind of, how they learn, like what learning techniques work for them, just helping them with their mindset. Or so much goes into it. And yeah, I just wanted to, it's cheesy, but I wanted to create what I wished existed. And that's what I did with the business, where I just set up basically a small group learning club where children could just feel comfortable, like you say, just have the time and space to go over things. The curriculum is so fast paced, you're on one objective, you're on to the next one. Sometimes they haven't really kind of understood the one before, and it's just so jam packed. And so I just wanted to kind of hold space for children in that way, really, and that's why I set it up.
Yeah, that is incredible, and I love when you say, I want to create what I wish existed. Yeah, because I think even the education system shifts so much, and we look at say for example phonics.
Yeah,
that's kind of done a whole loop of, it was in place, then they outed it, they went with a different system, and I certainly didn't grow up learning phonics, and now it's come back in, and it tends to follow these same cycles. In a lot of what happens, and there's some great elements, but I still think there's that bit missing in actually how do you get children to be emotionally resilient.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so at the learning club, like I was saying about created what what I wished existed, another phrase that I often use, is that we're decidedly different. So we do things a bit differently. So we will, when parents, when we do our sort of onboarding process with parents and families, we will ask them kind of what they want to focus on, what sort of transformation they'd like to see with their children, etc. But actually, even though we support with English and maths, which is what we do, and like you say, phonics, etc., just making sure they've got what they need, we also have a bit of a focus on skills, not subjects, which I think is something that perhaps primary education needs to kind of move towards a little bit, in terms of, like you say, building that emotional resilience, building the growth mindset. There's just so much that, that could be a subject in itself, couldn't it, really, to be honest? Emotional intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of the Nordic countries for a lot of the health and well-being that comes out of there. And interestingly, the children in schools there don't start until they're about 7.
No, I know. I think it's amazing. I think it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think they almost don't start writing until they pick up a pencil independently. And I think that with our education system here, that it's interesting. I think that quite a lot of stuff happens quite early and when they're quite little, and they're not really developmentally ready. And I'm just thinking of my son, actually, who's 4, and he's in reception now. And when he was in nursery, I was amazed at the objectives now in nursery, in the curriculum, because they're almost like the objectives in reception. And some of them, they just develop, in my view, personally, developmentally, I just don't think they're able to. Not all children, anyway. And then there's a bit of a pressure, isn't there, on them? And I think, like how you say, I think I totally agree that they almost need to be ready developmentally, but also to have that desire as well, because he wasn't hugely, and still isn't, massively interested in drawing or like forming letters, which is what they're focusing on now when they're in reception. But I think having been a teacher, I don't panic as much as perhaps maybe someone who hasn't been in the education world might, because I know it will come when that desire's there. And that's what I love about the Nordic countries, because they just follow the desire, and it just feels appropriate. Yeah.
I love that. That's so reassuring, because I think I went through a similar experience when my son, he started school the year of the lockdown, which was incredibly challenging, because he had about 2 months at school and then was homeschooling. And I think that transition from nursery to school had a big impact. And he really struggled with his speech. So when he started school, he had a speech therapist that would come in. But they were doing, well, I say they'd come in. They didn't come in because they did everything by Zoom.
Of course,
Which was, again, very, very difficult, because, as we know, technology, I mean, I live in Lincolnshire and the Wi-Fi is not great. So when we were having these conversations, they would freeze on the screen, and he's trying to see what picture they're holding up. And I just thought, this is bonkers. And it was so stressful for
it
me.
Makes it really stressful
during that time.
Yeah.
And for him. So it's being able to somehow reassure yourself that you're doing the best that you can, and those pressures, exactly like you said, those targets are things that,
I think so.
They're set as an average.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an average, and it's kind of, it's almost like we're trying to squeeze children into a system. Do you know what, rather than meeting the children where they're at and starting with the child. It's kind of, that the curriculum's there, the children can follow it, and then they're assessed and they're given a level, whether they're working towards or whether they're expected or greater depth. But I think somehow, and this is what we do with the Learning Club, we very much we always say, like, the children are at the heart, but we start with them and then we just kind of work out what they need. And that's why we have quite a lot of we have a big focus on regulation, like emotional regulation, we were saying before. So we've actually just started doing journaling with them, which is amazing. But we also do breath work and tapping and all sorts of things just when they come in, just to help them with that a little bit as well, make sure that they're regulated and in the best sort of place to be receptive to learning, and then obviously the learning is completely adapted for them, and working with where they are. And like you're saying about feelings, that's something we're just really passionate about, just making it not stressful, ensuring that they're happy. The name happy in the business, but it's true. I think when children are happy, they're most receptive to learning, aren't they? And so we're focused on sort of helping them to feel happy, not stressed, and then also making sure that their learning is relevant to the world that we're living in, and how it's changing and shifting.
Yeah, it's so true. I've been reading a book called Time to Think by Nancy Klein.
Oh wow. Okay.
Don't know if you come across it, but it talks about how we're not really given time to think, and the way that the education system is, or even parenting is, we kind of expect people to know answers, or we teach them to, this is the right and the wrong way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And
Definitely.
silences we find quite awkward. So to be able, and this is part of, what I do as coaching with people, is to give them that space to just be mindful, to just think about, the bigger picture and the things that we actually want. And I think if you can instill that in children from such a young age, mindfulness, journaling, that's so powerful.
Yeah, definitely. That's really interesting, actually, you were saying that, because I do think that's our society. We feel like we should just have the answer straight away, don't we? It's fine, yeah. It's sort of a lot of pressure, and we have in the learning club, we have quite a lot of focus on sort of when we're doing the learning sessions, or perhaps we're doing an English lesson, we do lots of modelling the writing and giving them ideas and examples, so they don't ever have that feeling of, oh God, I'd like that blank that sort of blank canvas and not knowing. And parents often say, like, we have so many resources out ready for them. Say they're doing a piece of creative writing, they'll have, I don't know, a word bank of loads of words and lots of supports and everything else. So it's kind of all there for them. And then it's very heavily scaffolded, and then they can start to do it. And then as they get more confident, they might not need it as much. But I think there's almost that, I don't know, that opinion that actually if children have that, it means they're not as able, or it's funny. And I think actually they don't know, they need to be able to visualize it or to see it. And like you were saying about the mindfulness as well, like it's okay not to have the answer, and just to take the time and space to think about it, slow it down, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you mentioned this, but we just live at such an incredible pace. So it's how do we slow that down? And I love, I read some of your mantras, and please share this, because I think these are absolutely brilliant. Particularly, I mean, the one that resonates with me the most is the feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, just tell me about some of the things that you use as your
mantras. It's just something that has naturally come up as we've been doing the sessions with the children, and there's been quite a big focus on having a growth mindset, which I know is sort of quite on trend anyway, but it is obviously something that's so important. And I think something I'm really conscious of is kind of, again, like I said, modelling it, but like actually modelling that. So talking about times where I've made a mistake, or that, where something's happened, and it's like sometimes I just say, like, my best mistake or whatever, and then I'll be like, why it was good, how it helped me. So I will say to them, another like, feel the fear and do it anyway, is just kind of put yourself out there and don't worry about it. But another one that I've got is to do with growth mindset is fail forward. Fail often and fail forward. And I say to the children sometimes that making mistakes or failure is basically just like pressing the fast forward button. And they're like, what? But it's true, because you're going to get to where you want to be more quickly. And it's just being comfortable with that, and not worrying about, that's something we work on as well, not worrying about what other people think, like knowing who you are, being confident in who you are, and discover, the fact that we can help them to discover that from quite a young age. It's their formative years, then that should really help set them up for life. And that's very much the gift that we want to give the children. So my got a team of we're a team of 4, so it's myself and Lucy and Imogen and Joe, and yeah, we always talk about how, you know, it's not just the activity that the children are doing, but it's the person, it's those like invisible classroom skills, all of that kind of coach. It's almost like coaching, isn't it?
Yeah.
That we're doing. The mantras really help. Yeah, and I think there's so much, it's so sophisticated what's going on. It's more than just obviously the activity is carefully planned for them and tailored, but it's call it what you like. I mean, it's almost like personal development, coaching, tutoring, small group learning, it's all of those things. And I think so many adults kind of need this in the world that we're in, and I think the children do as well. Yeah.
I mean, that was really my main driver for coaching, is to be able to, when my son was born, want to impart that knowledge and, you know, share that to help him. Because I thought, if I'd have known these things when I was, you know, growing up, you know, and they were instilled, then entrepreneurial mindset. I mean, you know, you look at I've forgotten his name, Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett.
Yes.
You know, and his mantra is pretty much fail fast. And that is exactly, if you're growing a business, if you're wanting to develop a new career, whatever it might be, you have to embrace that. You know, there's no such thing as failure, it's just feedback.
Yeah, it's so true. So true. And I think no one ever said that to us when we were young. But I wonder how we would be. I don't know. It's interesting, isn't it? And and I think part of the reason, part of my why for why I set up the business in the first place, was that I really strongly believe that every child deserves to have like at least one person in their life to sort of, you know, like cheerlead and champion them, like you said. And, you know, hopefully their parents are helping them with that. But I think it's very different now for this generation, but perhaps for our generation, it wasn't quite like that. But I think it's powerful. I think when you've got somebody that can see, understands you completely, knows, you know, what your personality is like, what your strengths are, like how you can work on things and all of that, and then just has that kind of belief in you, and that's what we want to provide. And I think that's so powerful.
I think, you know, you're right there, and you hope the parents can support, but actually, because of the pace of life, most parents both now work, and that is difficult. So I guess my question for you as well is, you know, how do you think for the next generation, you know, the Generation Alpha that's coming up, what's the kind of biggest challenge for them?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting, and I think that the biggest challenge facing this generation at the moment is the sort of, it's a bit like you were saying about the pace of the world. Like the pace of the world is so different now. We have so many technological advances. Like it's just, I mean, it's happening so fast, isn't it? And, you know, all this talk about AI, and AI is coming in, etc. So I think the pace is so fast, and that's a challenge. But I also think that we have access to so much and so much choice, so much at our fingertips, the pressure to keep up with everything. And we were talking about the pressure in schools, but then also just with life and everything that's going on around us. There is so much. And I think as parents, you were saying about, you know, being the cheerleader, championing your child. It's hard if you're both working full time, you're so busy, etc. And we're trying to do our best, aren't we? Of course, but there's so much to juggle. But yeah, as parents, we're trying to kind of give our children what we think they need. And it's hard to know always, I think. It's an interesting one, because I think we're trying to parent in a different way to how our parents parented.
Absolutely, you know,
which was quite authoritarian, wasn't it? And we're trying to sort of parent in a different way, but then I think sometimes we can get triggered because we've almost been conditioned to be in a certain way. We're like the guinea pig generation of parents or whatever.
100%, and that's exactly it. We don't necessarily have the tools and resources ourselves to be able to parent in the way that we want to. And interesting you said about AI there as well, because I think, just seeing the last 6 months of how AI has developed, I mean, it's so fast paced. You do think, well, I look at even sort of a few years ago where people were saying, oh, children need to be able to learn to code in school. This is going to be, the way forward. Well, AI has just gone, nope, you're not going to need that anymore. So, yeah, it's where is it going to go?
I know, it's so true, isn't it? For me, like, I find it quite, I don't know, like, there's a lot of like negative stuff about AI, and the sort of dark side of AI. There's quite a lot that's shared about that. But I also think there's lots of like positive, I can see that there's actually a podcast called Possible by I think it's the co-founder of LinkedIn.
Okay.
It's really interesting, and it's quite focused on AI, and he just talks about all the kind of all the benefits that we're going to have, and he talks about essentially the fact that we're all just going to have like almost like a companion that will help us be maybe what we provide at the Learning Club, the best version of ourselves. So just kind of strengthening all those little things that maybe are a bit imperfect or whatever, but obviously imperfections are perfect in themselves, but you know what I mean, just helping you. And that's interesting, isn't it? And I don't know, it's like fascinating. I mean, obviously some people use ChatGPT and things like that at the moment, which I think is particularly helping people who are dyslexic. It's just fascinating. The whole thing is fascinating. I think it will help people who are with like neurodiversity and that kind of thing. I think it's just, I don't know.
I think you're right. There are, like everything, there's got so many benefits, but people could always abuse it as well. So So tell me then, what are your plans for the future? Because I know you've got some exciting plans for next year, and where do you see it going?
Yeah, definitely. So very exciting. So we've got one learning club in Berkhamsted in Hertfordshire currently, and we've had sort of so much interest, which is amazing, which has been lovely. And we're actually looking to open our second club in another location to be revealed in Hertfordshire in the spring. So next year in the spring term. And our vision is very much to kind of continue building on, what we started, and to sort of grow a community. So to sort of build a community that extends to parents. We already support parents through our coaching calls. Like we were saying earlier, talking about parents, obviously it's very important to kind of, if we can support the parents to support their children, and we are very much that kind of bridging the gap between teachers and parents, because we've, as teachers ourselves, we're all qualified teachers, we've got that knowledge and expertise having worked in a school, and I think when you don't know that, it's hard to know next steps, etc. So we do support with that, but the community will extend to parents who want to do it differently, really, in regards to their children, and to support them in the way that we support them and share our values, but also to kind of extend it out to educators as well, that share our values as well. So exciting.
That's fabulous. And my background in HR was in schools, predominantly. So I think there are a lot of school leaders who also struggle with even just like those coaching conversations around their own resilience, because they're under so much pressure themselves. So that's fantastic. And we always ask for a book recommendation. Michelle and I are both book geeks, but if there's anything that you can say as top tips for parents, or for just generally as a book that you've read recently and you've really enjoyed or would recommend,
to do with education or to do with, I'm trying to think,
anything.
I think that do you know what? There is a book that's really lovely, and it's slightly different. I think I might even have a copy in here. I'm going to show you.
Oh yeah, do. Yeah.
It's really lovely. It's not like a fiction book or a non-fiction book, but it's called You've Got This. I don't know if you've ever. It's by Dominique Bertolucci, and it's so great. It's basically, we were saying about the mantras.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it helps us to be sort of more kinder and generous with ourselves. So what I do sometimes is I just open up the book and I just read it, and so I've just turned onto a page and it says, I have integrity. And it just gives you a bit of information. Like sometimes life presents you with a sticky situation, but it says the next time your integrity is challenged, make the decision to do the right thing. Regardless of how things turn out, you will be able to look back and be proud that you had the courage to do what needed to be done. And there's like a little affirmation that goes with it. So it's for adults, great for parents. And I use it as a business owner, entrepreneur as well. Like it's brilliant. It's all of that stuff we were saying about building resilience, etc. I would love there to be one like this for children. I think it would be amazing.
Yeah. I mean, that's hopefully 2025's plans. So you've got that now.
No, it's fab. It's really good.
Yeah. Amazing. And we'll put the links to that in our show notes as well, because I think that's a great resource for people. And how can people connect with you? How can people find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is learnhappyco, so _co. And I'm on LinkedIn as well, Facebook. But yeah, my website is just learnhappyclub.com, so you can have a look there and get all the information you need.
Amazing. Okay, thank you so much. And again, we'll put those links in the show notes. But thank you so much for your insights today, Kate. And I'm sure our listeners will get a lot from that. I certainly have.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's been great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. We rely heavily on word of mouth, so if you found value in this episode, please hit subscribe and share it with family and friends. If you'd like to find out a bit more about us, you can find us on our Facebook group, Parent Entrepreneurs Club, or alternatively on Instagram, parentrepreneurs_club. We hope you have a great week and we look forward to talking to you next time.